Today, I want to show you guys how to soul Valiant. If you guys don't know who Soul Valiant is, he is pretty much the poster face child of Subsidia. Excision plays out all of his stuff. He's on every compilation. He's even released with a lot of high records like Autofred, Cannibal, and obviously Subsidia. Now, what makes Soul Valiant so special and unique is his ability to master the noise-based chugs with his very unique sustains. And today I'm going to show you guys how to do that yourself and become your own Soul Valiant. And this is what we made today. If you guys want to get this project file yourself, you can jump on my Patreon. It's going to be linked down below. And if you're new here, go ahead and like and subscribe, as we just broke 6K on the new year. We doubled our size this last year, and I'm going to try to do it again. So every like, subscribe, share is very appreciated. Let's dive into this. When breaking down an artist's track, what I like to do is go over their actual track and reference. You can actually see me making certain color fields, and this is to get down like how they like to write. Green represents his calls, his orange is his main motif, his chug sustain. This is a fill, and the light blues are his fill twos, which I was just keeping because it had his vocals in it, and I wasn't going to try to recreate all that because that's not the important part. So I kept parts of his track that I felt didn't need to be recreated, and this helps me get down an idea. And you can kind of see green, and then I made my calls right here. My fills are in its own category, my response, which is like my chug and sustain, and my sub that's on its own. Let's get into his basses, and that brings up what this video is actually supporting today. Is he actually just dropped a sample pack, I think like a month ago, maybe a little bit longer. I'm sorry if I'm a little behind. It's not a massive pack, but it's good, and I'd rather have good quality stuff rather than a ton. He has his bass one shots, and one thing I noticed, he likes to write in C a lot. He even said this, which is wild to me. He has different basses, like this nice airy stuff. He has a lot of these in here. He has just really basic drum loops, which I used. I really like his clap. I actually just used this first one here. He has hats, subs, and he has his sustains as well, which we'll go over in the pack. Nice, cool stuff. So if you do want to get this pack, you can reach out to him on Instagram. That's how you get it. It's not like a massive pack. It's kind of a low-key thing. So go check him out on Instagram. I'll pop it up right here. It'll be down in the description below. Go message him. So one thing I noticed about Soul Valiant's mixing style is he mixes his basses super loud to the point where it's like at the level of his drums, and his high end cuts through a lot. So that's what I was trying to mimic here, is a higher cut bass that's super loud. So obviously my drums are still hitting 0. This clap is so nice. The kick's distorted, that's fine. Cymbals, I just have 2 different of his loops, pan left and right. One slightly delayed milliseconds. So you kind of get that like off time. And I mean that's the drums. This is the whole drums. Super easy. So now we're done with the bass stuff. Let's start with calls. And like I said, another thing he said, and I'll pop it up if I find it, is he just loves to keep layering stuff. So my idea going in this project was using his basses and just layer stuff and not really be too picky. You can see the layers here. I really did minimal stuff. A little reverb, EQ, didn't do anything crazy, and then a little to a sub. So we have layers here. And we're just playing with where it's sitting a little bit, but for the most part, it's pretty much the same hit twice. The sidechain makes it sound a little different. So then come to our responses. I use the same type of philosophy here. And just so you guys see, I have fresh air, EQ 8 on my responses. Utility, this is actually kind of important. It's to make it not sound as like, wow. I want a little more staccato in my chugs without it. Very important if you want that kind of like, that kind of space in it. So I don't know a good way to do it besides using utility. This is what I like to do. Super easy. You just do it to what sounds right. I have a little Valhalla throw here as well, which I think is more used in the second drop if I'm, yeah, for space, yeah. So don't worry about that. And then just G-clip, which is just pushing it even louder. So we go to the individual layers once again. You see it's been turned down to C as well. So we are writing C. And then I have this one going on the up. So. And then sustains. I just laid a lot of sustains, cut them, did a sub rack, make it pitch up, because he did that in his track as well. The track I'm referencing, the sustains like, well, I think it was going down, but I want to change it. So it's just rising up, and we're just doing this. And then I noticed his sub really doesn't follow a full sustain or an individual chug. Usually his are like half notes, so that's what I went with. Put that all together. And I notice he likes to let these sections ring out when the drop first comes. You'll notice that this is 3 bars technically of just quarter note dubstep, no change, no variation. Fills, I just added some new basses here. Sub. And then I just had this one on its own. So it kind of gets that bite going into the one. And then he repeats the section again, changes the sustain. I use a Samplifier one because I didn't want to try to make one that mimicked what he had. So this was close, it's like a phone bass. And then mix with all together. And then I just kind of copied it. He did. And I always see like that zap on the 4, which are right on the 4th, 8th note. So I didn't have a zap, so I just used one of Nasco's. I think it's pretty close. Going back to the 2 bass hits right here, and then we just have his like Reese fill with a vocal. Go back into call, have his 4 bars again, same type of fills. He reuses his fills, ironically, but he puts them in a different spot. So this was the last fill of the first 8 bars. It actually became the first one. And I just slightly changed up this one to be a variation of like pulled out. I think I stretched the bass. And then of course the zap. And let's talk about mixing styles now. So one thing you'll see if I pull up Span is his high end is super high in my version of it. You're going to see the sub, but the high end's going to be pretty high. So I noticed that he gets a lot of his grit here, his like high end grit, and that's why you'll see in the response group that we actually use fresh air. It just adds I'm pushing it to the max on high. So we're adding a lot of noise onto his noisy basses, but then we're also cutting stuff because it's also important to tame it. So we tamed a little bit right here, which we don't really need that high end, right? Because we have our cymbals here that are already going to do that for us. So we have to be careful that when we're mixing that. And then another thing to know is where is our sub? Our sub takes up a lot of our mix. So roughly up to like 200. What we can do is we can actually pull that out of our chugs if we want. And you may think you're thinning out your own basses, but your sub is so big, at least in this instance, that you don't really need it. Sustains are kind of following the same thing. We have a shifter rack here. I'm just adding some multi-band compression here because there's so many layers, so I'm kind of trying to put them a little bit together a little more. Pulling them in, and you'll see, like I always do, is I'll pull up to the lowest point of the bass harmonic or the note. You'll see here, so I'll show you. Like that mud right there, we don't need that. But we do need this guy right here. So that's how I always kind of like EQ my basses, or my sustains. And you'll see they're very mono heavy versus our chugs. Quite wide. Even to the point where it's maybe a little too phasey. If we play our track all together. So it's something I would think about if I was like going in to master this track, is our basses, our chugs are quite wide. Now, is it okay? Yes. But we could probably pull it in like, maybe like 10%. Let's just see how it sounds, right? Yeah, I like that. That's fine. And then all we really change in the second half here, besides the fills, is this sustain. We just made it do different stuff. Or we just use different ones. And that's very simple. Soul Valient is the king at writing super simple dubstep, so don't overcomplicate it. And I can even show you this second drop. Like I said, just another variation of it. Sounds like this. So yeah, anyways, I think you guys get the point. Very easy. Go hit up Alex if you want his sample pack. If you want this project file, you can grab it on my Patreon, link down below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Happy New Year. Happy producing. Take care, y'all.